Thank you all for your practice. And so as much as this is a meditation group and a class as such, this is also a community building enterprise, I guess, I would say. And we do have a new person here. So Alex, say hello to everybody.
Yay.
Welcome.
50% off today, right?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
15. It's like it's kind of bright in here. I mean, it's always a little brighter than some nights. But so yeah, what a fucking radical thing this is to see everybody here, and like what a radical thing this practice is. You know, you could be out doing a million other things, but here you are sitting with your own bullshit, and that's really commendable. You know, it's kind of where this lineage that I'm trained in, it's the Theravadan lineage, but it originated with Against the Stream meditation centers in Noah Levine, and that's what we're doing here, is going against the stream. You know, most people don't do this. Most people refuse to sit with their own shit. Most people look for any distraction they can to not have to do that. So congratulate yourselves for being fucking awesome, quite honestly. And having the balls to do this. It's really cool. So, I almost didn't even want to do this anymore. I kind of got to the point I was very frustrated with things. And my mind started going into comparisons and the judgments, and my view got all fucked up. And I almost quit. So it's really nice to see you all here. I fell asleep, as happens, right? Mindfulness is a great practice when we remember to do it. But we're always forgetting. It's like all we do is forget. It's like literally all we do is just forget. And we do a bunch of stupid shit. And we're like, oh, what happened? It's like, oh yeah, I forgot to be mindful. Oops, did that thing again. Do any of you have a mind like that? Just forget to be mindful? Yeah, me too. Don't worry. I've been doing this for a long time, and I still, all the time, I'm like, oh, that was not very skillful. So tonight I've decided to kind of take it back to the basics and talk about mindfulness. And because we're going to be talking about mindfulness, I think the best way to start is at the beginning. So tonight we're going to be talking about mindfulness, and in particular we're going to be talking about mindfulness of breathing. So in that, I'd like to talk about where this practice comes from, what the benefits of this practice are, offer some of my own personal reflections on this practice and how I got started and where I'm at now with it, and then how we practice it. So if mindfulness is the concert, right, I really feel like mindfulness of breathing is the headliner. And that's not necessarily because it's the best band. It's just the most popular band, right? And it's a practice that I think most people are familiar with. I mean, when most people start meditating, generally they start with mindfulness of breathing. But I don't want you to get it fucked up and think that just because this is where we start, that this is like some less than practice. There's plenty of fully realized arahants that have existed that only did this practice. And they awakened fully with nothing but this practice of mindfulness of breathing. So I don't feel like this is a beginner's practice, because it's definitely not. This is a beginner's practice and a very advanced practice. You could do nothing but this practice and have a ton of benefits from it. And that's what I did for a really long time, was just mindfulness of breathing. This is the first practice that I learned. And I love it. I still do this practice daily. This is one of my main go-to practices. So where this practice originates from is in the Buddha's 4 foundations of mindfulness, which is the Satipatthana Sutta. If you're a Dharma nerd like me, then it's the Majjhima Nikaya, which is the medium-length discourses. It's the Majjhima Nikaya Discourse 10. So if you want to go nerd out on it, it's available. You can just go type in Google, type in meditation MJ10, and this will pop up. So satipatthana, what the fuck does that even mean, right? What did I even say? Salty banana, satipatthana, like what am I even talking about up here? Again, this is the Buddhist discourse on the 4 foundations of mindfulness. So this is like the original gangster, OG, motherfucking straight up mindfulness teachings. Like if anytime you hear mindfulness, this is where it comes from. So anytime you ever go to Mindful Recovery or Mindful Living or you see Mindful Magazine, this is where it comes from. But mindfulness is actually a relatively new word. In the late 1800s, there was a couple of British scholars. They were actually married, the Rhys Davids, and they were in the process of translating the Pali Canon, which is like the main OG Theravadan text. It's the teachings most closely attributed to the Buddha. So they're translating the Pali Canon, and they come across this word sati. They translated it as mindfulness. But in Pali, what sati means is to remember or to recollect. So we have this word, satipatthana, which means to remember. Patthana means the ground. So we're remembering the ground. We're remembering to be here now. We're remembering to be grounded in this present moment with this practice, with this non-judgmental awareness. So as I said, there are 4 foundations of mindfulness. The first is mindfulness of the body, and the mindfulness of breath is included in this category. There's also mindfulness of Vedana. Vedana is translated as a feeling tone. If you're in psychology, a hedonic tone or valence. The third is mindfulness of the mind, and the fourth is mindfulness of Dhammas, which is translated a million different ways, categories of experience. It's really just mindfulness of the teachings. And we're mindful of the teachings of the Buddha. But as I said, we're going to be focusing on mindfulness of breathing, or anapanasati. Anapana meaning breath, and sati meaning mindfulness of breathing. So why do we practice mindfulness of breathing? Well, there's like a million reasons we should practice mindfulness of breathing. It should be noted that this is a training. The whole Buddha's Dharma is a training system. It's a training of the mind. And this particular practice is a concentration practice. So by training the mind in this practice, there are a shitload of benefits that you can get from this practice. And the first one that I'd like to talk about is focus and concentration. Because it involves bringing your attention directly to a fixed object, in this case being the breath. Just observing the rising and falling. We're increasing our capacity to concentrate. We're building our focus. We're flexing our focusing concentration-y muscle. So it helps us to stay in this present moment, and it cultivates concentration. And by practicing this regularly, you will find that your attention does get better. I don't know if any of you have any kind of like ADHD tendencies like I do, but this has helped with that immensely. I used to be very scatterbrained. I was all over the place trying to do a million things at once. I was a one-man band. I played like 5 instruments at once. I definitely have ADHD, but this has helped with that immensely. The Buddha had this to say about it. He said, "This concentration through mindfulness of breathing, when developed and practiced much, is both peaceful and sublime. It is an unadulterated, blissful abiding, and it banishes at once and stills evil, unprofitable thoughts as soon as they arise." Which sounds pretty awesome, because it is. Another benefit is stress reduction. So by practicing this, we can lower our stress levels. Just by paying attention to our breath and observing it naturally without judgment, you create a mental space that allows you to step back from the stressful situations. And that's actually how I got involved with this practice to begin with. A lot of you have heard this story, some of you have not. At one time in my life, I was married, and my wife at the time had a little girl. I'm assuming she still does, although she is not a little girl anymore. She just graduated from high school. When we met, however, she was 4 years old. I'm a cancer survivor, so I can't have children of my own, and I raised her daughter like she was mine. She called me daddy, and I loved her very much. And one day we separated and she was out of my life and I didn't know how to fucking handle it. Like at all. And so, because I had what I would call poor to no coping mechanisms, I turned to drugs. And I eventually ended up getting addicted to heroin. And that landed me in jail. As as it happens when you're a heroin addict, you're going to end up one of three places. I don't think I have to tell you any of y'all where you go. But in case you're curious, it's jails, institutions, and death. And I'm really happy that I didn't die, because I fucking could have. And I got real close a lot of times. In fact, I courted death like a courtesan of darkness. Like it was an obsession with me. Like I kind of wanted to die, but I didn't, and I ended up in jail. And I was looking at a 25-year minimum mandatory sentence for conspiracy to traffic heroin, which I didn't do. I was not guilty of conspiring to traffic heroin, which is why I'm obviously not in prison for 25 years. But I did plead out to a possession charge because I was guilty of having drugs. Although they didn't find any drugs on me, I was guilty of drug use, and that's still technically illegal in case you haven't checked the laws lately. So here I am in jail. I have no bond, and even if I did have a bond, I couldn't afford it. I was a junkie. I thought that was a kind of a funny joke to tell the people that arrested me. I was like, don't you think if I was trafficking heroin, I could afford to pay my bond? But I did have a bond at first. It was like $50,000. And I was like, I don't have that. It was just laying around. Check my sock drawer. So I was sitting in jail and losing my whole mind and going fairly insane with stress and worry and anxiety. And I found a book on the bookshelf one day, and it was called We're All Doing Time by a man named Bo Lozoff. And he was kind of part of that early 70s spiritual movement with Ram Dass and Stephen Levine and all those cats. And it had some basic yoga asanas and this mindfulness of breathing practice. And one of the biggest points of that was treat this time while you're incarcerated like it's your ashram. Make this your practice while you're here. And that's what I did. And I started doing yoga, and I started meditating daily. And people left me the fuck alone because they thought I was insane. Because I wasn't playing cards and I wasn't yucking it up with everybody. I was sitting very quietly by myself with my eyes closed the majority of the time. And it's kind of how I got here. And I'm really thankful for drugs, because I wouldn't be here doing this right now if it wasn't for heartache and heroin. So thanks to heartache and thanks to heroin for giving me this opportunity to learn this beautiful practice. But yeah, so stress reduction, it works for that. Emotional regulation. Anybody could use some of that shit, emotional regulation, right? Like I think we can all probably do with some of that. I know I could, especially at that time, and still, if anything, I've gotten more emotional with this practice. Cultivating the Brahma Viharas is a motherfucker. But I can also handle them a lot better. So that's really nice. I don't have to go insane. Body and mind concentration. So in connection, we have I really feel like, especially in Western culture, like most people just kind of live up here, right? We're just go, and we're just completely disconnected from the body. Everybody close just take your finger and hold it in the air. Touch, and now point at yourself. Point at yourself. Where are you pointing at? Your head? Yeah. Right. Exactly. We think we're here. But we're here. We're this. I mean, we're not this, but we have this, and we're this. We're the heart. If anything, we're the fucking heart, right? That's what we are. We're love. That's all we are is love. We live up here because of our conditioning and all this bullshit out here. But this practice can help us reestablish this connection with the body, reconnecting the mind and the body. It can also enhance self-awareness, which is really nice. Because a lot of, I'd say 95% of people are very lacking in self-awareness. I feel like if you have taken on a practice like this, you kind of like, man, maybe there's some things I could work on, as far as myself goes. Most people just don't even think there's anything wrong or that they don't need any help at all. They're just like, I'm fine, I'm great. Meanwhile, they're, drinking every night and doing whatever weird shit they do to try to have fun or mask the wounds that they don't even acknowledge that they have because they're not self-aware enough to see them. So this practice of mindfulness and mindfulness of breathing can increase this self-awareness, and it really does facilitate personal growth and self-reflection. Overall improved well-being. There's another one, right? Who the fuck doesn't want to just feel better, right? That's like the main reason I started with this. Is just to get out of my head so much, to just quiet my thoughts. And it worked for that for a long time. And it still works for that. It's not that my thoughts go away. They're still there. We can't stop thinking. We can turn the volume down a little bit. It don't have to be so loud, so demanding. Just by grounding ourselves in the present moment, we can really experience life fully. We're not living in the past. We're not worried about a future that never comes. You guys realize that, right? Like, the future never happens. It's made the fuck up. Like, the future doesn't exist. It's always right now. 100% of the time, right now. And, so it helped me with that, especially when I was in jail. I was in jail, but I stopped worrying about the outcome so much. I mean, I knew I wasn't guilty. There's no way I was going to do 25 years for a crime I wasn't guilty of. And I had faith in that. I had confidence in that. If nothing, I had confidence in that. Another really good reason to practice this is because it is the direct path to awakening. This is it. If you've been looking for awakening, you found it. You don't even have to look for it. It's right here, right now. Right from the jump in the sutta, in the Satipatthana, the Buddha lets us know that this is the path to awakening. And he said, this is the only way for the purification of beings, for the overcoming of sorrow and lamentation, for the destruction of suffering and grief, for reaching the right path, for the attainment of Nibbana. It's right there. This is the way for the purification of beings, for the attainment of Nibbana. Sound good? Sounded good to me. Still sounds good. Every time I read it, it sounds good. It's an awakening here and now. You don't have to put it off. It's right now. We don't have to go looking for it. It's right here. We just have to tap into it. And you've all experienced it. You just didn't even realize it. The mind wasn't trained enough to notice that you were experiencing this nibbanic moment. Our awakening can be found in this breath. And I feel really fortunate that we have these teachings. I might not be fully awakened, but that doesn't mean it's not possible. And it doesn't mean that it's not possible in this lifetime. It is. And it's possible for every one of you. Every one of you has this ability to wake up. Like I said, I might not be a fully realized awakened being just yet. But at least I can be a calmer and slightly less neurotic version of myself. And that's pretty cool. So how do we do it? Well, in this sutta, the Buddha says, here, a bhikkhu generally is translated as monks, but in this context, it means all of us. We're all bhikkhus and bhikkhunis, and we're all on this path. So it says, here a bhikkhu, gone to the forest or to the root of a tree or to an empty hut, sits down and having folded his legs crosswise and set his body erect, and establishes mindfulness in front of him. Mindfulness in front of him, right here, with the breath. Establishing mindfulness in front of us. He continues, ever mindful, he breathes in. Ever mindful, he breathes out. Breathing in long, he understands, I breathe in long. Or breathing out long, he understands, I breathe out long. Breathing in short, he understands, I breathe in short. Or breathing out short, he understands, I breathe out short. And then the text actually shifts a bit. He goes from understanding to training. So we go from this conceptual idea of breathing in and breathing out to the actual experience of breathing in and breathing out, training ourselves. He says, I shall breathe in, experiencing the whole body, the whole of this in and out breath. He trains thus. I shall breathe out, experiencing the whole body, etc., etc., etc. And it's refrain after refrain. And through such a training and practice, we eventually just directly experience this breath, right? We stop thinking, oh, I'm breathing in, I'm breathing out, and we just experience the breath as it is. So we're moving from the conceptual mind into the bare sensate experience. So with the subtleness of mindfulness of breathing practice within the bodily process, we can calm the body. And the Buddha uses this analogy. He said, just as a skillful turner or turner's apprentice making a long turn knows, I am making a long turn, or making a short turn knows, I am making a short turn. Just so the monk breathing in a long breath knows, I am breathing in a long breath. Breathing out a long breath, he knows, I am breathing out a long breath. Breathing in a short breath, he knows, I am breathing in a short breath. Breathing out a short breath, he knows, I am breathing out a short breath. Experiencing the whole breath and body, I shall breathe in. Thus he trains himself. Experiencing the whole breath and body, I shall breathe out. Thus he trains himself. Calming the activity of the breath and body, I shall breathe in, and on and on and on. The point is, this is a training, right? And it actually gets further elaborated on. As I said, this practice comes from the Satipatthana, but he actually elaborates further on this in the Anapanasati Sutta, which is also found in the Majjhima Nikaya. And this one is, I think, Majjhima Nikaya 118. And in that discourse, the Buddha lays out 16 steps that we're to practice when doing this meditation. So, again, having gone to the base of the forest or the base of a tree or an empty hut, in this case, this would be our empty hut, just a quiet place. We're trying to find a quiet place free from distractions. And the first step is bringing awareness to the in and out breath, right? So by bringing our attention to the sensation of breath as it enters in the nostrils or the abdomen or whatever your chosen anchor is, right? I like the nostrils because it's right here, right? I breathe through the nose normally, so I don't have to go looking very far for the breath. It's always there. And that's really the reason we use the breath as an anchor, is because it's a very easy anchor. It's always present. It's always been with us. Through every experience we've had, all the ups, all the downs, all the good times, all the bad times, the breath has always been with it. Ajahn Brahm says, our old friend, the breath, right? He's always been there for us. So, as I said, the first step is just bringing in awareness to the breath itself. The second being awareness of long and short breaths. So we observe whether the breath is long or short without trying to control or manipulate it. This isn't pranayama. We're just observing our natural respiration. The third step is experiencing the whole body. So expanding our awareness to include the whole body and feeling the breath as it flows through the body. The fourth is calming the bodily formation, so calming the body. So when we breathe in, we're relaxing the body and releasing any tension or tightness that we might be holding. The fifth step is feeling joy. So we cultivate a sense of joy or happiness by appreciating just the simple act of breathing. The next step is experiencing mental formations, right? So observing the thoughts and emotions as they arise, and the mental states that arise and pass away while we maintain focus on the breath. So we watch the thoughts arise, as I directed in the meditation earlier. Watching thoughts arise, simply noting a thought, and then coming back to the breath. Then we're calming mental formations. So we allow the distractions of the mind to kind of settle and dissolve as we rest in this anchor of breathing. And just gently returning our attention to the breath over and over, every time the mind wanders, just over and over, coming back to the breath. And then gladdening the mind. So we're cultivating positive mental states such as gratitude, kindness, compassion. And these kind of uplift the mind. We can kind of use meta phrases for this. We don't get into really meta practice with this, but gladdening the mind through our breathing. And the 10th step, or 11th step actually, is concentrating the mind. So we develop concentration by gently bringing our attention back to the breath whenever it wanders. As I said, just returning to the breath over and over. The 12th step is liberating the mind. So we cultivate a sense of detachment and non-attachment, letting go of any clinging or aversion that arises. So we stop chasing after pleasurable experiences. We stop pushing away from painful experiences, and we just let what is be. The next step is observing impermanence. And when we talk about insight practice, this is kind of one of the things that we're trying to cultivate insight into, is this impermanent nature of reality. Everything falls apart. Nothing is stable and therefore kind of unsatisfactory. So, we're noting the ever-changing nature of all phenomena, basically, and just allowing them to arise and allowing them to pass away. The next step is observing fading away. So we observe the fading away or dissolution of distractions and mental formations as we maintain mindfulness of the breath. And then observing cessation. So the cessation is just observing moments of stillness and cessation where the breath almost might temporarily stop. You'll notice sometimes you almost stop breathing when you're deep in this practice, or it can feel like it stops. That's cessation. And the final step, step 16, is observing relinquishment. So we're cultivating a sense of letting go and just surrendering to the present moment as it is. Just letting what is be. These 16 steps are a progressive sequence that allow practitioners such as yourselves to develop a deep, concentrated sense of mindfulness and insight to just observing the breath. Like I said, this is not necessarily a beginner's meditation. When we really get down to it, this is a very advanced practice with 16 steps involved in just observing the breath. It's not simply just, oh yeah, that's for beginners. Trust me, it's not. I've had some really insane experiences with just this practice on retreat. Full-on psychedelic experiences by just observing the breath. It took days. 10 hours of meditation a day for multiple days, but I've had legit psychedelic experiences just observing my breath. It's important to note that these steps are not necessarily rigid, and they can be adapted to suit you. Feel free to play around with it. You can kind of move them around a little bit and shift them a little bit. You don't have to stick to this rigidity. It's not that serious. Nothing really is. As I said, and this is the direct path to awakening. You can all wake up, but you have to do it. You have to practice. We can't just talk about it. We have to be about it. We have to get on the cushion. If you really want the benefits of this practice, you have to do it. You can't just do it every now and then. I can't stress enough how important the daily practice is. Even if you're only doing 20 minutes a day, give yourself that. Give yourself 20 minutes. Everybody in here's got 20 minutes at some point throughout the day. I know, because I spend at least 20 minutes on this thing every day. And I know all of you do too. And you can't tell me you don't. So just try to find some consistency with it. Develop a practice, stick with it. You start small. If you got to start with 5 minutes, start with 5 minutes. When I first started sitting in jail, it was 5 minutes, 10 minutes at a time. I sat for 3 hours the other night. 3 hours. You guys can do that. Maybe not yet, but you can. I know you can because I can. And I'm not special. Trust me, I'm not. You know, what's the point? What are we all doing if we're not trying to wake up, right? Like, for real. Like, what's the point? That's what this path is for. It's for awakening. I mean, yes, it can help us live more fulfilling lives, help us flourish more, help us be more at peace. But at the end of the day, this is about the attainment of Nibbana. And I'm in it to win it. You know what I mean? Like, let's do this shit. Like, let's wake up together. Yeah. I hope something in this talk has kind of helped or resonated with you. I hope something has landed. I've kind of talked about where this practice comes from, what the benefits of it are. I've given some personal reflections on my practice, how it started and kind of where I'm at with it now. And went over 16 steps of how we practice it. So from that, let's practice. Let's move into some more practice. So again, we'll just find a position that is upright and supportive. Just any position that will allow you to sit comfortably for the next 30 minutes. You don't have to be super rigid with your posture, just, whatever's comfortable. And again, just allowing our awareness to come inward by gently closing the eyes, or if that's not comfortable, just finding a soft gaze at the floor in front of you. And again, the meditation will begin and end with the bell. So again, just coming back to the anchor of the breath. And for this practice, let's all just concentrate on the entrance to the nostrils and the space above the upper lip. Just using this triangle-shaped area of the nostrils and the space between the nose and the upper lip as our anchor. As we just observe sensation. Just giving our attention to the incoming breath and giving our attention to the outgoing breath. Just paying attention to whether you're breathing in short breaths, whether you're breathing in long breaths. Just observing the quality of the breath. And starting at the top of the head. Just relaxing any points of tension that may be felt as we scan downward. So just relaxing the muscles of the crown of the head, and relaxing the muscles in the brow. Softening around the eyes. And softening the face. Unclenching the jaw. Softening into the muscles of the neck and the shoulders. as we continue scanning downward and just softening the muscles in the chest and the abdomen, relaxing the back. And softening through the arms and the hands. With each breath, just softening the body. Continuing downward as we soften through the muscles of the legs and into the feet. And just bringing a sense of ease to the body with each breath. Just deepening this sense of well-being with each breath. Just observing thoughts and emotions as they arise, simply noting them and coming back to the breath. Noting any planning, any thinking, any judgment. Simply making a mental note and returning to the anchor of the breath. Noticing the impermanent nature of thoughts as they arise and pass away. Noting the impermanent nature of the breath as it too arises only to pass away. Just experiencing for yourself the impermanence of all things. Training the mind by coming back to the breath each time thoughts arise. grounding ourselves into this present moment. Again, breathing in, knowing through your own experience that you're breathing in. And breathing out, knowing that you're breathing out. Setting aside any craving for this experience to be any different than it is. And setting aside any aversion to this experience. Just letting what is be. Breathing in and just calming the mind. Breathing out and calming the mind. By training in mindfulness of breathing, we can break our addiction to the thinking mind. Just turning down the volume. time the mind wanders off in thought, just redirecting back to the breath. Just focusing the mind. With each breath, liberating the mind from craving, liberating the mind from aversion. Slowing down into the present moment. Each breath, just cultivating an easeful mind. And I'll ring the bell to end the meditation. Thank you all for your practice.